A Chinese national caught red-handed at Nairobi airport with 2,000 live ants stuffed in his luggage. This isn't just another bizarre travel story. This is about Africa's biosecurity, economic exploitation, and the underground trade that threatens our continent's natural heritage. And what happened next will shock you. Welcome back to African Insider, where we bring you the stories that mainstream media won't tell you. I am your host, and today we're diving deep into a case that exposes the dark underbelly of biological exploitation in Africa. Zhang Kequn thought he could walk through Jomo Kenyatta International Airport with a suitcase full of Kenya's native ant species. He was wrong. But this case reveals something much bigger than one man's smuggling attempt. Today, we'll unpack the background of biological smuggling in Africa, analyze what this specific case tells us about Kenya's biosecurity challenges, examine the key players involved, explore different perspectives on this incident, and most importantly, discuss what this means for Africa's future. Like this video help more Africans see this story. To understand why Zhang Kequn's ant smuggling matters, we need to talk about Africa's long history of biological exploitation. For centuries, our continent has been treated like a free-for-all biological supermarket. During the colonial era, European powers systematically extracted not just our gold, diamonds, and people, but also our plants, animals, and genetic resources. Today, this extraction continues in more sophisticated forms. African medicinal plants become patented drugs worth billions in Western pharmaceuticals. Our unique genetic resources are studied, modified, and commercialized without fair compensation to source communities. The ant trade Zhang was involved in. It is part of this same pattern. Now, you might wonder, why ants? African ant species are incredibly valuable to researchers and collectors worldwide. Some species have unique social behaviors that scientists study for robotics and artificial intelligence. Others produce compounds with potential medical applications. Kenya alone hosts over 300 documented ant species, many found nowhere else on Earth. China has been particularly aggressive in biological resource acquisition globally. Chinese institutions have been documented collecting specimens from South America, Southeast Asia, and increasingly, Africa. This isn't just academic curiosity, it's a strategic resource acquisition for biotechnology development. So what exactly happened with Zhang Kequn? According to Kenya Wildlife Service reports, airport security discovered the ant collection during routine luggage screening. 2,000 specimens, carefully preserved and organized, this wasn't casual collecting. The ants were identified as native Kenyan species, some potentially rare or endemic. Zhang was immediately detained and charged under Kenya's Wildlife Conservation and Management Act. The penalties are serious, up to 2 years imprisonment or fines reaching 5 million Kenyan shillings. But here is what is interesting, this was clearly a planned operation, not a tourist impulse buy. Kenyan authorities believe Zhang was part of a larger smuggling network. Intelligence suggests he had prior contacts in Kenya and specific collection targets. This raises uncomfortable questions about how foreign nationals are accessing Kenya's protected ecosystems and who might be facilitating these operations. The case has exposed significant gaps in Kenya's biosecurity infrastructure. While the country has lost protecting wildlife, enforcement for smaller species like insects has been historically weak. Most border controls focus on large mammals, elephants, rhinos, while billions of valuable smaller organisms slip through unmonitored. Subscribe for honest, Pan-African analysis you want to find on CNN or BBC. So who are the key players in this unfolding drama? First, the Kenya Wildlife Service, led by Director General Erastus Kanga, has taken a surprisingly strong stance. Unlike previous cases that were quietly handled, KWS made this arrest public, signaling a new approach to biosecurity enforcement. The Chinese embassy in Nairobi has remained largely silent, offering only standard statements about respecting local laws. But behind the scenes, there are reports of diplomatic pressure to minimize the case's impact on Kenya-China relations. Then there is the scientific community. Kenyan researchers at institutions like the National Museums of Kenya have long complained about foreign scientists collecting specimens without proper permits or benefit-sharing agreements. Zhang's case has become a rallying point for demands to strengthen research collaboration protocols. Often overlooked are local communities whose traditional knowledge guides collectors to valuable species. These communities rarely benefit from subsequent commercialization, creating a pattern of exploitation that Zhang's case exemplifies. International organizations like CITES and the Convention on Biological Diversity have also weighed in, seeing this as a test case for how African nations will protect their biological sovereignty in an era of increasing bioprospecting. Reactions to Zhang's arrest have been fascinating and reveal deep tensions in Kenya-China relations. Many Kenyans on social media celebrated the arrest as long overdue enforcement against foreign exploitation. Comments ranged from, "Finally, someone is protecting our resources," to more critical voices asking why it took so long. The scientific community is divided. Some researchers worry that aggressive enforcement could harm legitimate scientific collaboration. Others argue that stricter controls are necessary to prevent exploitation disguised as research. Politically, the case creates awkward timing. China is Kenya's largest bilateral creditor and a major infrastructure partner. Some government officials privately worry that aggressive prosecution could impact broader economic relationships. Environmental groups have seized on the case to highlight broader issues of natural resource exploitation. They agree demanding comprehensive reviews of all foreign research permits and stronger benefit-sharing requirements. Legal experts see this as a potential landmark case that could set precedents for how Kenya handles biological resource crimes. The outcome will signal whether Kenya is serious about protecting its biological sovereignty or if foreign pressure will water down enforcement. So what does Zhang Kequn's and smuggling mean for Africa? First, it highlights our continent's vulnerability to biological colonialism. While we've gained political independence, our genetic resources remain targets for extraction without fair compensation. Second, it shows we're losing control of our own biological heritage. African innovations based on indigenous knowledge are being patented abroad while source communities receive nothing. This pattern must change if Africa is to benefit from its own biodiversity. Third, the case demonstrates the need for continental coordination. Biological smugglers exploit weak border controls and inconsistent enforcement across African nations. We need harmonized policies and shared intelligence to protect our collective biological wealth. Fourth, there's an opportunity here. Instead of being passive victims of biopiracy, African nations can develop indigenous biotechnology capabilities. Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and Ghana are already building research capacities that could transform biological resources into domestic economic opportunities. Finally, this case should inspire a new generation of African scientists to study and protect our own biodiversity. We cannot protect what we don't understand, and we cannot benefit from what others control. Subscribe and hit the bell for more stories that matter to Africa's future. Looking ahead, Zhang Kequn's prosecution will be closely watched across Africa. If Kenya successfully convicts and imposes serious penalties, it could deter similar exploitation attempts. But if diplomatic pressure leads to lenient treatment, it will signal to biopirates that Africa remains open for exploitation. The broader implications extend far beyond ants. As climate change and technological advancement increase the value of biological resources, Africa must decide, will we remain suppliers of raw biological materials, or will we become innovators who benefit from our own natural wealth? This case is a wake-up call. Our biological resources are not infinite, and they are certainly not free. Every species smuggled out represents lost opportunities for African development, African jobs, and African innovation. Check out this next video where we explore how Nigeria is fighting pharmaceutical biopiracy, and don't forget to comment your thoughts below. Do you think Kenya should prosecute Zhang to the full extent of the law, or should diplomatic considerations influence the outcome? What steps should African nations take to protect their biological sovereignty? Let's discuss in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.